like, Hare Krishna is different than so if you're a spiritual person, you have spiritual aspirations, and you might have peak experiences where you do feel connected to something greater, right? Like, why not cultivate that? Like, if you have the opportunity to connect to love and wisdom and the divine and the supreme reality, like, you might as well just like integrate that into your life as well. You're in front of like your workstation, your magical altar. I'm in front of my magical altar. We create awesome stuff. We're safe. And just kind of like notice what happens in the body when you consciously register that stuff.
Wow, feeling euphoric.
Nice.
This is a podcast conversation with Daniel Shankin, integration coach and founder of TAM Integration. Psychedelic experiences can induce a flash of insight, or some might say enlightenment. But when the cosmic gloss wears off, we're back to our same old selves, back to our same old habits and haunts. That's where integrating the experience comes in. It's the way we can create practical and actionable changes in our everyday lives. One of the things that the underground of psychedelia has historically lacked was any kind of lineage of wisdom guiding the new initiates. This is where someone like Daniel comes in, offering his service and wisdom for those on the psychedelic path. I think the bio on his website says it best, that as a psychedelic integration coach, Daniel serves people with emerging spiritual visions to weave their newfound truths into their lives in a way that is sustainable, harmonious, compassionate, and wise. His methods are fiercely practical while maintaining space for mystery and magic to emerge. This is why I was so excited to talk to Daniel, to learn. Someone like me with 10 plus years of experience might be able to really help a beginner. Well, here's someone with 10 more years of experience than me who we can all learn from. This conversation was healing in mind and spirit in many unexpected ways. So I hope y'all enjoy my conversation with Daniel Shankin of TAM Integration. All right. Well, hello, Daniel.
Tyler, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you digitally. I've been kind of coming across your stuff, like a lot of people that I know that also know you. It's been a similar story where you're just browsing through Instagram or TikTok, and then there's this guy with a very calming voice dropping wisdom from the forest, and it's all very like practical stuff. So for maybe some people who don't know some of your story, I wanted to just kind of first get into like what your thing is, TAM Integration, and if you can kind of lead me through the process of you just being a psychonaut, a psychedelic explorer, and how that got you to start TAM Integration.
I got a sure. I'm going to answer that in a way, I hope.
Sure.
Um, I got a text from a student slash friend of mine today who asked, "Have the psychedelics ever told you to stop taking psychedelics?" And I said, "Of course." There was a time when the DMT elves told me, "Stop coming around here and go do some cardio." And I said, "Is that a metaphor for like the heart chakra or something? Or like universal love?" And they were like, "No, exercise." And the funny thing is I was texting him as I was going to the gym to go do some cardio. Um, and then also, there's a lot of stories about people getting off of other addictive substances, with psychedelics. And so, the LSD told me to stop drinking at a Grateful Dead show. It was actually Phil and Friends at the Gorge. And I took a break from everything for quite some time and just kind of did yoga and meditation. I just did yoga all day, became a yoga teacher. Like trip sitter, shaman, like wasn't really a job in 1999. There were like three therapists in Berkeley doing it. But, for the rest of us, we had to figure out how to help change consciousness without, you know, raw. So anyway, I don't know if this answers your story, except to say that integration was really important to me before I even knew the word, right? That there was this idea that, Ram Dass talked about in Be Here Now, and other teachers talked about, is that, you find a way that, the psychedelics help point you to a way to improve your life. And then you just go do that. And that if you need some time to clear the cobwebs out, or if you want to have an experience of looking deeper, or maybe you just need a good dance party, they're there for you. But the rest of your life is really where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I was living. And, at some point, I was coaching and teaching and doing things like that. And more people kind of wanted to talk about psychedelics. But I really, cut my teeth in client work, um, with like you were saying, like practical, actionable, like spiritual principles. And that's, I think, what's really useful for people. It doesn't do anybody any good. I mean, it's fun, but I don't really see how our life is being improved by talking about how, like, the royal family are alien shape-shifting lizards. You know what I mean? There's like nothing I can do with that. So I'm interested in the stuff that I can do stuff with. Earth is round, Earth is flat. What can I do with that? I don't care. I don't have any time. I'm busy. I'm busy, like, creating awesomeness. And so the shape of the planet, is largely irrelevant for me as far as it goes. And even, a lot of philosophical things, if I can't put it into action, I'm less interested in it. Does that answer your question in any kind of way? Did I do
Yeah,
it?
yeah, for sure. So it sounds like it's been gradual, and like, were there any times like early on, before, like you said, before you knew what integration really was, where you felt at home providing that for someone? Was there like an early example of that you can remember? Anything notable?
Well, I mean, we all generally took care of each other. Everybody was there to take care of each other. I was lucky to have a community, an island of misfit toys. We were all there for whatever reasons. I, largely was self-medicating. Some of that was because of my family stuff, which wasn't terrible, but, it was mine. And some of that was just societal, being kind of really uncomfortable in society, not knowing how to fit in an insane world, as it were.
Mhm.
And but we looked after each other. There's a real family energy. And I might have gotten looked after more
Mhm.
than I looked after, but it turned into, healing arts. It turned into yoga teaching and things like that, and meditation teaching, and holding space for people in that way. And occasionally holding space for friends and loved ones in medicine space. But a lot of the people, one of the things that's really cool about a yoga studio is that there's a lot of people, this happens in the psychedelic world too, who have done a pretty fair job of ruining their life, and now they're putting it back together. And that's some of my favorite stuff.
Mm.
It's like those folks who are like, oh, they noticed, or they had enough. They had
Yeah.
enough of their self-sabotage, and they're ready to, like, go the other direction. They're ready to make it work, to make good on their promises to themselves.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think a lot of us are always on a journey with that. And just going to what you said earlier, it's almost more important that you were on the receiving end of that space holding, because then you know how important it can be as
Mm.
someone who was receiving it. It was similar for me, where my initial life-changing LSD experience in part was triggered by a friend who was my trip sitter, offering a space of compassion. And, like I was experiencing ego death for the first time without knowing anything. I was very, recklessly going into this, like a lot of beginner psychedelic explorers. And his act of compassion was what actually turned my trip around and led to a like textbook mystical experience. So now I see the importance of that, having been on the receiving end. And so you also mentioned something that I wanted to touch on. Since your thing is integration, I came across this post recently, and I think there's even like a study on it where it was like talking about how the definition of integration can be really ambiguous and mean different things to different people. Like you talked about, being in a sick society, and some people have the idea that integration means like fitting into this sick society after having a psychedelic experience. And my quick definition, I see it as like taking the lesson. Like if the lesson is super clear, like what you said, it's go exercise, then you go and exercise. So I just wanted to see if we could get a little bit deeper into that, and if you could clear that up, what a little more precise of a definition of integration.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot of different pieces of integration as near as I can tell. And the answer I'd give you tomorrow would be different than the answer from yesterday and the answer you're going to get right now. But let's see what we can dig up. So there is this one thing that you're talking about where we learn some lessons. They're like, oh, you should, the medicine or your higher self or God or whatever says, oh, you should do this. And then you go do it. You should take care of your body. You should get your finances together. Your relationships could be cleaner. And then you go do that. Right. So that's cool. But that's just, you can do that at school. Right. You almost don't need psychedelics for that, although it does sometimes give you a deeper insight because, as we know, different parts of our brain connect when we're on psychedelics and we're effectively smarter. Right. Which is cool. There's also disparate parts of our personality that don't always get along. Right. So there's the part of us that wants to work really hard, and there's the part of us that wants to relax. And, there's the part of us that thinks we're good, and there's the part of us that thinks we're bad. And we need to teach those things how to get along. So we might realize the extent to which we have internal conflict at an existential level or a level of identity about who we are and what it means to be who we are. And so then we start to put that together. I had another phone call recently. Somebody said, oh, I think I'm making psychedelics too much a part of my personality. I think my ego has co-opted psychedelics and kind of created the ego structure around that. And, my response was, well, you could do worse. Mm-hmm. Right. Sometimes we're all very worried because we know that the ego will take anything and use it to its advantage. And in this case, might mean to protect ourselves, like the ego is almost like a self-defense mechanism. It's a lot of different things. We could define it a lot of different ways, and I'm just going to define it this way, which doesn't mean the other ways are untrue, right? So there's a lot of pain, right? A lot of people are in a lot of pain. It's existential angst and self-loathing. And we're trying really hard to ignore the fact that we hate ourselves and we feel unlovable, which is really quite sad, but that's what's happening. And so we develop personality structures to defend against that and to try to validate ourselves and try to get other people to validate us as well. Right. And so then we've got, oh, that person's really grumpy. Oh, that person's a people pleaser. Oh, that guy's really an asshole. And what we're dealing with is a bunch of defense mechanisms, right? Like that designed to protect against like the pain of being a human in late stage capitalism, right? And so that stuff we might want to heal. And then from there, hopefully we're going to construct consciously a personality, because we got to have a personality, right? Like you're moving through the world, you're interacting with other people, you're a person, you need a personality. So hopefully it's a consciously constructed personality that that is recursive and increases health, wealth, and wisdom, for lack of a better term. Let's just say it makes you increasingly healthy. You're doing your cardio, right? It's your personality is predisposed to take care of the physical body. Wealthy, you might as well be better, might as well have the things you need so that you can thrive and take care of the people. You might be young, you might want to have kids one day, you'll want to take care of them, right? Wealthy, able to take care of the people in your care. And wise, you're getting smarter, right? You're getting smarter, your life is getting more interesting, you're having more interesting thoughts, you're having more interesting experiences, and you're able to perceive the nature of reality in an increasingly clear manner, right? So in that way, integration is a process of healing the pain so that you don't need to defend against it, so that you are more at choice in creating who you are, right? Have an integrated personality. So that's two. What else do we have? Sometimes, right, in Bessel van der Kolk's Body Keeps the Score, he talks about how trauma work can actually integrate our personal history, right? When bad things happen to us, our our autobiography gets scrambled, and we repress memories, and we forget what happens to us, and we remember things out of order. Which also affects our identity. We don't even know who we are. We don't remember what happened to us. And so integration of your own personal history can be a thing. So then what do we have? So then we might want to integrate ourself with the spirit, right? With the self, right? Right. There's the non-dual theories of like only the self is real, right? Right, the supreme reality. And so if you're a spiritual person, you have spiritual aspirations, and you might have peak experiences where you do feel connected to something greater, right? Like, why not cultivate that? Like, if you have the opportunity to connect to love and wisdom and the divine and the supreme reality, like, you might as well just like integrate that into your life as well. And then we've got community, and then, there's a bunch of things, but then let's talk about community. Maybe you want to integrate yourself into community and be a part of your community in a better way. For example, like I have raffle tickets. This is really cute. So the place where I go and do cardio is like a nonprofit community center. They have to raise $1.7 million this year to stay open. I don't have $1.7 million. I had $20. And so for $20, what they let you do was reach your arm up and stand up, and then your whole body length, you could have your whole body length in raffle tickets. And I'm 6'2", and I'm big. So so I bought $20 worth of raffle tickets, to win like, whatever, some local business gift certificates. So that's, one thing that I can do in my community, and I don't care if I win. But that place needs to stay open, or I don't have a place to work out. And again, like, well, it's like I'm not rich, but I got $20 for the community center, right? Wealthy, right? Contributing, integrated into society. I got to talk to this old lady who's on the board. It's like, just like, be a good neighbor, like shine the light of psychedelic love onto like old ladies who were like trying to keep the center open. Like she might call it like the love of Jesus. I don't know, right? We call it psychedelic love. Call it whatever you want. And then hopefully like you're integrated in nature, right? So the ability to connect with the natural world, right? You see me wandering around in the woods in my videos, and that's fun, and I got to be honest with you, some days I'm out there and I'm like actually taking a hike. like I'm out there and I'm taking a hike and like, I take my phone out for a small portion, but like I'm like taking it all in and maybe I'm foraging for mushrooms. I'm looking, when it's mushroom season, it's not right now. I'm checking out the vistas. And then sometimes I'm just like, I just gotta like hit the path next to the road.
Mhm.
I'm driving and I was like, let me whip out a video real quick. And I hop out into nature and I make a video and I get back in the car. And that's the nature of social media. But, we live in a natural setting on purpose, and, it's important to us that like, it's important to me that like my kid, like can spot hawks,
Mm.
that we can, um, build little lean-tos, in there's in various, hikes around, you'll see a tree and like people will have built lean-tos and like, he can play in them and like, he can move the logs around and that's fun. And that he's integrated into the natural world, right? He can spot a mushroom, like, and think that that's cool. He can spot a salamander, think that that's cool. And kind of recognizing that we're nature too, and kind of breathe that in and breathe that out, and kind of feel the wisdom of that. And so that's just like 4 or 5 integration areas, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful answer, man. I love all of that. And I think that's something that all of us could get behind, And it made me think of something that I wanted to get your opinion on. 'Cause I think, did you at one point live in the Bay Area? Did I read that somewhere or see that
Yeah.
somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, Tam is Mount Tam, and I lived
Okay.
Marin near Mount Tam when we started it.
Okay, because the Bay Area is really synonymous with the whole 60s American side of the counterculture and all of that good stuff. So what I wanted to ask you, something that we actually talk about on one of those panels that I was telling you about, the psychedelic content creator, one of the first things we discussed was, what does a psychedelic community look like as we're like moving into this psychedelic future? Like, what are your thoughts on what an ideal, or maybe more an achievable, psychedelic community might look like?
I don't know. I mean,
Or have you seen examples of it that are working?
I, part of me wants to say every community I'm in is a psychedelic community because I'm
Uh,
in it.
uh, uh.
Um, and one of the things that I am enjoying seeing, in San Francisco Psychedelic Society and, TAM integration circles when we met in person in Marin and, the communities around the conferences. Are you hitting any conferences?
I haven't been. No, no. I'm just doing this from my little corner of the internet, but I
Okay.
would like to at some point. Yeah,
We want you at a conference soon.
yeah.
Uh, and what was I going to say about them is what I am enjoying seeing is less stigma,
Mm,
right? Because how old are you?
I'm 30.
You're 30. Okay, I thought you were younger. But when I was a kid, when I had long hair, right?
Uh,
When I had long hair, and it was like just us doing psychedelics. Like it wasn't like there weren't really bros, and there weren't really, venture capitalists and pharma people. Like it was just the hippies and the punk rockers for the most part. And then I remember in college, um, the wrestling team would ask me to score the mushrooms. And that was like one of the first times that I had, seen short-haired kids who wanted to do psychedelics, or jocks wanted to do psychedelics, but they loved them. They loved them. I couldn't get them enough. Um, but so the underground for a while was plagued by stigma and paranoia. Are we going to get caught? Are people going to judge us? Are people going to throw us in jail? These kinds of things. And that's really sad. And it happened. And people got judged. People missed out on opportunities in the above ground world, and people went to jail. There's that poor guy in Connecticut, who got caught with a house full of mushrooms. And the psychedelic community is built on the back and the hard work of the people who produced and distributed psychedelics, right? And these people get like those are the people who get judged. It's like, oh, everybody, it's cool, like if you want to do it, but like the dealer, right? Is sketchy, or the dealer is like, a criminal still. And that hopefully has got to change. There is also, because of the the self-medicating aspect of it, that a lot of people have come to psychedelics because they're hurt or wounded. Like, that's not new, right? Like, even in the recreational communities, like it's like there's a lot of abuse that is coming from pain, right? People are self-medicating, and sometimes people are even self-medicating, don't aren't really very concerned about their health and well-being, right? There's people who you talk to that don't expect to live long, healthy lives, that's a bummer. And so I really hope to see an increased commitment to health and well-being, self-esteem and self-worth, and things of that nature. And I think a lot will flow from there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the answer I have on that right now. If you can ask a follow-up, if you want.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I haven't been to any conferences or anything like that. I'm really interested in like psychedelic science and stuff with visionary art, and just the kind of events that have the widest range of people, because I'm I like to learn about the science, but I'm not in that world at all. So what is it like? You mentioned like seeing venture capitalists and stuff. Like what is that like to in your perspective? Like seeing the hawks kind of come in, and how much of it do you think is disingenuous, or late stage capitalist? What are some of your thoughts on like that side of it, the industry side of it?
Um, to be honest, I wish that they would hire me to consult more often.
Yeah.
Because why not? Why wouldn't I? I don't make a lot of effort to put myself out there for that. But if you ask me, it's like, well, they're showing up with millions of dollars. Like, I would like some.
Mm.
Um, I don't have I'm not naive about how the world works.
Mm.
That's how the world works. There's stuff happening, and it's cool, and there's an opportunity to make some money, and people are going to try and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Generally, when I run into those folks and talk to them for 20 minutes, I generally have a nice exchange, right? Like, I don't have a lot of access to grind, if that makes sense. Like, I'm kind of like I'm saying, like, I don't have a lot of time for like flat earth and
Mm.
alien shape-shifting lizard conspiracies. Like, I don't have a ton of time for stuff that's like not awesome for like the stuff I'm trying to do with my people. So
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm really focused there, and I think we're going to be okay. Like, I'm not worried. Somebody was saying, because about Oregon, right? And the legalization of Oregon, and like all of the bureaucracy and red tape around Oregon and the Oregon programs.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody was like, well, do you think that it's disrespectful to the mushrooms or something like that? Or, is it gonna make the mushrooms mad? Or are we ruining the mushrooms? Keep in mind the mushrooms that terraform the entire planet so that life could evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what we're talking about. Like they built the planet, right? Like
Yeah.
millions or billions of years ago, depending on who you ask, right? I'm not great with history. And also there's that. So, they're a tad resilient, right? They're not fragile. Also, I read the article and they're like, I read an article about one of these centers that opened, and they're like, we have 63 people scheduled. Isn't that great? That's less people that are on mushrooms at like a single fish show, right? It's like not a drop in, like it doesn't even rate on the scale of like people who are like just regular folks who are doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And regular folks are going to continue doing what they're doing, and they're going to continue Googling how to take mushrooms safely.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to continue Googling how to grow mushrooms, and they're going to do it for $1.50, and they're going to have a lovely time.
Yeah.
So, the other stuff, people are going to play the games that they like to play. I'm going to play the game that I like to play. Other people are going to play the game that they want to play. And I unless like it really starts to show up as harmful, I'm not, which, every the things that cross my radar as harmful are not necessarily them.
Mm-hmm.
It's other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I was just curious because, I'm pretty much coming at this from the underground perspective, like what you were saying. So I'm at the point where when I first got into the psychedelic stuff, it was around 2011. So this was whenever it was still very much, on the taboo side of things at the very end of that period. So I've gotten to see, similar to what, like, my generation is also the one that saw the end of the analog turn into the digital, as opposed to just like forever existing in this you know world of iPad kids. I say that in jest. So I wanted to know, uh, like, out of the people you talk to, how many of them are absolute beginners? I did a little poll on this channel on the YouTube. You can like run a poll, and
Mm-hmm.
50% of people that voted said they had been tripping for 1 or 2 years. So it's actually more on the beginner side of the spectrum. So how many beginners do you talk to, and what are some of the common things that you talk to them about?
I talk to a lot of beginners. What are they? Sometimes it's, well, what happened? What was that?
Mm,
Um, beginners' concerns are kind of what you'd expect, is that they want to make sure that they're safe, right? Just like, am I gonna come back? Am I gonna
mhm,
feel like I need to run away and join the circus?
mhm,
Um, what is dosing like? Where people want, but where do I get it? People don't know where to get it, which I can't necessarily tell them. But what I like to encourage beginners to do is look for the intention behind the intention, right? It's like, oh yeah, I want to do psychedelics, and it's like, why? And then, there's this litany of, problems and concerns and desires and goals. And then I'm just really curious because I know, it's like we know how it works. It's like it's going to shift some stuff, but then you're going to have to do a lot of work about it after. And so trying to get them to wrap their head around their own creativity and resourcefulness,
mhm,
that maybe they can do more to engage the life that they want than they originally thought. It's like, oh, I want to do psychedelics so that I can get my creativity back. And it's like, well, cool. What I want you to like, well, can you just, what's getting in the way of your creativity now? It's like, well, there's stuff on my drafting table. My drafting table has just become a place where I just keep all my clutter. It's like, okay, well, let's just start there. You know, people want a magic bullet, but it's like, you know, I've never seen psilocybin clean off a desk. I've seen people on psilocybin clean things up. I've definitely seen people on acid clean vigorously. It's another story. But, you know, getting into just the triggers that we have around our own habits, right? Getting somebody to look at their cluttered desk and kind of breathe into the panic and sadness and fear that is associated with it, and to kind of let go of, you know, yeah, the pain and the judgment that goes along with not living the life that they should be living.
Mm.
And sometimes just, you know, sometimes prep, you know, getting somebody ready for a journey can sometimes almost put them in a place where they didn't need the journey to be at all. I mean, often they still take it and it's still brilliant and wonderful, but, you know, getting a little bit of accountability and a little bit of introspection can go a long way with or without psychedelics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's like about the whole framework surrounding before, after, during the psychedelic experience itself. Cause yeah, I know people put a lot of weight on it. So you mentioned something like at the very beginning of that where people are like, what was that? And I think all of us have had a handful of experiences that are just so ineffable and wild that we don't know what to do with them, don't know how to integrate them. And sometimes that can take years. So you were, I was preparing for this talk by watching a bunch of your videos, and I think one of the things in your videos addresses that. It was something along the lines of like, you don't have to understand everything, you know, just see that it's all love, it's all God, or something along those lines. So would you say that's kind of like an answer to dealing with these rather ineffable situations?
Maharaji Neem Karoli Baba used to say, it's better to see God in everything than it is to figure it out. And he was a bhakti yogi, which meant that he related to God through love. So when he says see God in everything, what he is saying is love all of reality in every moment. So even if you're some other religion or you're an atheist, you can still practice loving each moment instead of trying to figure it out. I bet you a free psychedelic masterclass. It works. And don't worry, you'll still know what you have to know. Very rarely do enlightened people forget their name. It's better to love everything than it is to try and figure it out. So sometimes things happen that, yeah, you don't know, you don't understand. And that's okay, right? Like the Buddha put confusion like into, like he labeled confusion as part of the system, right? The mind, when it's not in full clarity, goes to kind of greed and attachment and clinging, or it goes to hatred and rejection, or sometimes it's just confused. It doesn't understand. And so confusion comes as no surprise. And it can be really powerful actually to label it as such. To your mind is spinning, and then just like the clear mind, the clear witness can be like, oh, that's confusion. And all of a sudden you're free. But life, Maharaji said to Ramdas, well, Ramdas told a story about Maharaji, and he said, whenever my guru wanted to praise me, he would call me simple. And whenever he wanted to make fun of me, he would call me complicated. Oh, that Ramdas, he's so complicated. Right. And so the more we can create simplicity, the better, because the simplicity is honest. Like the complexity is one of those self-defense mechanisms that we were talking about. am I going to be okay? Like, oh, I've got to figure out this. It's like getting all the pieces in play. And sometimes, granted, sometimes in the external, we're creating we may have a project that has a lot of moving parts and has, it's complicated and complex to get a lot of moving parts together. But when the complexity is self-centered, right? Like, that's the question, is the complexity purpose-driven or is it self-centered? And so, like, am I going to be okay? Am I going to get what I want? As opposed to, like, is this project that is being worked on for the good of all mankind, going to come together because this is doing what this is supposed to do, and this is doing what it's supposed to do. And so the less defended we can be, right, the simpler we can be. Is that the answer to your question?
Yeah, I think that's a good like general framework because I know it's always like a case by case basis on, what happens in someone's experience. It could look so different and be equally ineffable and just not know what to do with it. But I always find that the psychedelic experiences, especially with mushrooms, that it seems to leave clues. I don't know if you've ever experienced anything like this, but I'll get it's like the mushrooms will highlight something for me that will
Mhm.
become my homework.
Sure.
It'll be things that I didn't know I cared for. And then as I look into them, I discovered the richness there. Like, for example, I've seen visions of alchemy in my mushroom state. And I saw the symbol for Rosicrucianism and all these things that I've just never really given any thought. And then at the time, they were ineffable and didn't make any sense to me. And then I would just go read about them. And that was how I would integrate those experiences. And I feel like it's, you were talking about the body keeping score. What are your thoughts on how like the tryptamines keep score? Like it seems like the mushrooms and DMT have this built-in mechanism of being like, you need to stop. Maybe LSD does too, but I just find that interesting how, mushrooms and DMT will the terminology that's been coined is a hyperslap, where,
Right.
DMT is just like, psh, what are you doing here again? What what are some of your have you ever experienced that? What are some of your thoughts on
Yeah, that's
that?
my whole life, man. I'm dumb. I'm dumb and I'm self-centered. Yeah, and I mean, LSD is a tryptamine too. It can certainly
Oh,
do
right,
that.
right.
And the so that yeah, I'm familiar with this. And I think what ends up happening is, we could look at it from a couple of different ways. Is again, there's parts of our brain that don't ordinarily communicate,
Mhm.
right? And so we have more processing power, right? And so we are recognizing that we're doing it wrong.
Mm.
Um, I think, however, so there's that. However, there's no reason why that in and of itself should feel like a slap. I sort of feel I've got a pet theory that it feels like a slap the most to people who have a lot of internalized shame,
Mm.
right? Who have received a lot of criticism growing up, right? Where their life has been full of um, criticism and judgment and kind of, that was delivered in a way that was kind of cruel and lacking in compassion.
Mm.
And so the mushroom, so even either like the mushroom is doing it, either the mushroom is slapping you, which, either it is or it isn't. Or the mushroom is a amplifier of our psychic system, which we know that it is. And so it's entirely possible that it is amplifying our inner critic, right? So if we had been guided with love, and when we made a mistake, we weren't shamed for it, and it was safe for us to learn about ourselves and grow, I bet the hyperslap experience would be more gentle and kind.
Mm.
But we're carrying around tonnage, we're carrying around tons of self-hatred. And so it's not like, great, so you're not exercising as much as you should. Like it doesn't mean you're not worthy of love.
Mm.
Right? It's like we've been indoctrinated into a tough love system where we think that the only way we're going to learn is through abuse. And like we're so we've internalized that so much that like I don't deserve to be treated kindly when I make a mistake. That we are just, and then we blame the mushroom. We learn nothing instead of being like, oh wow, like I deserve kindness as I'm learning and growing, because there's no way that I could have even known before,
Yeah.
because I was making the best decisions with the information I had available and my perspective. Like I was doing the best I could. Find me somebody who wasn't doing the best they could with the information they had,
Mm.
right? And I will show you somebody who deserved to be treated like shit for making a mistake. But I haven't met that person yet. So it's like I would like us to stop blaming the mushroom for the hyper slap and start learning to love ourselves and believe that we're worthy of love and but worthy of forgiveness for not knowing better.
Mm. Man.
That's our
I,
next video.
yeah, I love that so much, man. That it resonates. And I think you're onto something about, that internal mechanism of shame, and how if we just came to things with a more compassionate and a sense of grace and for self-forgiveness when we make these mistakes, that these hyper slaps might be a little more gentle. But I will say that, like, of the stories that I hear of these so-called hyper slaps, it's I don't see much blame put on the mushroom. It's like, yeah, I kind of deserve that. Like, it was right. There's this element of recognition that it was true. So that's beautiful, man. Your answer made me just feel all warm inside, man. uh,
It's not it's good. Yeah, it's not the mushroom's fault, but I'm not convinced it's even the mushroom's doing.
mm,
Like the mushroom is being filtered through our nervous system,
right. Yeah.
and so it's like I wish we would realize that we don't need to learn things the hard way anymore,
Mm,
that we can learn with gentleness and love.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's beautiful, man. Yeah. Just hearing you say it, it just like fills me with this sense of ease.
Mhm.
Like very. I don't know. This is why I love your stuff, man. Um,
Yeah, I don't know. Let me be the first one today, perhaps, to tell you that you're worthy of gentleness and kindness even when you make mistakes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that means a lot, and I'm sure anyone listening will appreciate that message. Um, Man, that's amazing, man. Thank you for sharing all of that. So I wanted to get into a little bit of specific tools in the toolkit for navigating some psychedelic experiences. So I've seen you come across two. So I wanted to like lay these two things out. I want to give you some anecdotes and then let you expand on them. So the first one I wanted to get into is mantras.
Okay.
So I was having a mushroom experience about a year and a half ago, and I was listening to music, and there was this song by a band called Dunyan, and they have this repetitious guitar solo. It's just like a single line, it's just like one melody, but they just repeat it over and over and over. And then in this state, I recognize it as a mantra. It was
Mhm.
like this guitar solo, this phrase, this musical phrase was like a repeating mantra. And there was so much power in that. So I just wanted to share that. I'm not really asking for your interpretation of that experience, but I just wanted to share that and get some of
Sounds
your
awesome.
thoughts on mantras.
My thoughts is that most people who spend time chanting them are happy that they did.
Mm.
That it's nice to have a safe place to put your mind, right? And you can put your mind on your breath, and that works really well too. It's nice to put your mind on to have a variety of places, vibrational places to put your mind.
Mm.
And it is nice that the folks who have come before us have found the vibrations and the frequencies and the tonalities that are super high vibe,
Mm.
right? Because like it's different. Like, Hare Krishna is different than fuck, 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 right? And I'm not saying that I've never been on psychedelics screaming the latter. I mean, I've been on
Yeah.
psychedelics both. And what is, and the first one, Hare Krishna, kind of at this point in my development, takes a little bit more consciousness. Like I was like, I almost have to kind of move to it. There are occasionally times when I fall to it, where I default to it, but we practice it so that we can default to it. And that also we can start to recognize that perhaps that vibration is actually our default.
Mm.
That when we clear away a lot of the clutter, that our essential primordial vibrational quality are similar to the names of God.
Mm.
Right? So the idea is that it's not an accretion, right? It's not like it's not an outfit that you put on, right? It's reductive, right? The idea is that it's what's the thing at the dentist where it vibrates and it gets all the gunk off?
Mm. I don't know what that's called.
Like
Yeah.
an ultrasound? That's not an
Yeah.
ultrasound. It's like the thing that cleans with vibration,
Yeah.
right? And so the idea of the mantra is that it cleans you with vibration, cleans your mind, and it cleans your channels. And that also, if you're a person who likes the idea that there are divine personalities out there, divine presences, and I do. I have no skin in the game. It's like I'm not on a conversion mission. I'm not going door to door in a suit.
Yeah.
Have you heard? I'm not going door to door in orange robes. Um, Although I have sold books on college campuses. Like I had a friend who was a Hare Krishna, and he was really bad at selling books. And I was like, I bet I can sell more books than you. And then I did.
Nice.
but but it was just it's like just for fun. Um, but so the theory is that the gods are in their names. So if you say Ram 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 Ram, like he's there, right? Kali Kali Kali, she's there. And so if you want that power and that presence, as Allen Ginsberg says, just pick up the mantra telephone,
Mm.
give them a call. And so some people get um, strength and security and safety from that as well. Um, it works best if you practice it a lot.
Yeah.
Like if you say a mantra 3 times and then you go into a psychedelic journey and you expect it to work, well, it might, right? But that's almost, it's luck.
Mm.
And, as my dad would say, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Mm.
So if you kind of really, and as Jocko Willenick says, right, that when the chips are down, people don't rise to the occasion, they fall to their level of practice. So
Mm.
it's like, what is your level of practice?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I love that. I really love that. And I can relate, as you were describing this idea of clearing the air, of bringing it back to this primordial state. I practice a form of Kundalini meditation, um, and in the meditation, it's this guided meditation that I like to use. It's talking about surrendering everything to Shakti, this divine feminine force that animates everything. And
Yeah,
in
you might as
this,
well.
yeah. And while I'm doing this, I'll say Shakti to myself and then just offer everything up. All this extra junk in my aura, all this stuff going on in my mind. I'm just like, I'm giving it all up to you. It's this clearing of the air, like how you described. And consistently, I'll get like goosebumps down my spine and I'll feel something. I'll feel pure. I'll feel safe. I feel fulfilled. Um, and this is just meditating. I haven't ever really tried doing a mantra on psychedelics.
Well, that's awesome. Do you listen to Wah?
Wah? Uh-uh.
There's
No.
a woman, lovely. She's an amazing woman. Um, and she does, she does lives, I think, on like
Mhm.
Facebook or something. WHA exclamation point. And she's got a great Shakti Kundalini Jagatambe JJ Ma mantra
Oh, okay.
on her albums.
Oh, great. Yeah, I want to look into that. Thanks for
But
the
yeah, man,
recommendation.
that's the good stuff right there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Do you have any particular mantras that you gravitate towards?
I mean, that's personal,
Yeah. Oh, that's okay.
but yeah, I like them. And it's really sweet that, my 4-year-old, like I've got like he'll be like, you know, pet my hair and do that mantra and do Sri Krishna.
Mm.
And there was one time we were in the car and there's I don't know if you're familiar with this phenomenon, but like, the phone syncs up with the car and then it just like automatically plays stuff from Apple Music.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the stuff it plays from Apple Music is stuff you bought like 10 years ago
Mm-hmm.
because that's when people were buying stuff on Apple Music. Nobody's bought anything in forever because everybody's Spotify now. Um, so there's this one Krishna mantra that would come on a lot. And it was like, oh, okay, that's rad, and I liked it. And so I would be driving the kid around. And one time we were in the car and he was like, play Hare Krishna. And my wife puts on Hare Krishna. And he was like, no, not that one. It's like a needle in a haystack, because there's like and it's like we all know 10,000 versions of the heart. If you're the kirtan head, like there's some people out here being like, what are you talking about? It's kind of like it'd be like if you're a Grateful Dead head, if the kid said, you know, play Casey Jones, not that one, right? There's a million versions.
All the versions, yeah.
And he goes, it says Hare Krishna, but then it does the other thing, and then it does Hare Krishna again. And I was like, oh, okay. And I found the one. And so like that feels good. But it feels good to have a kid who like requests kirtan from time to time.
Yeah. That's incredibly adorable, man. Yeah, I would hope for the same if I have kids down the line. Um, nice.
Get
Okay.
started.
Hmm?
Get started.
Get started? Yeah. I know, man. I'm 30 now, so it's something to be thinking about.
At least like start socking away for the college fund. Like that's what I had wished.
Mm,
Because I'm old, like I started late, but like I could have been like a little more proactive about like college funds.
mm.
But I had no idea. Like I wasn't expecting kids.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a good tip for sure. Um, okay, so the other thing I wanted to get in, this is one of the things you mentioned in the post on Twitter X. Um, it was about somatics. So this is a very interesting idea to me, and I wanted to share my anecdote.
Yeah,
Um, so it was on my most recent mushroom experience, which was a more intense one. It was a lemon tech, 3 grams, and the come up was, it was a rocky rocket ship launch.
mm,
You know, it was one of those where it's like it could go off the rails super quickly if I don't like keep my cool here. And
right.
one of the big things that made this uncomfortable was this somatic sensation, which I could only describe as like, it felt like a pillar of doom going down my like central channel. It felt like this solid like thing. I don't know if it was like because I was having an adrenaline rush. Maybe, you know, like I heard the blood kind of rushes to the center of the body. So maybe there's some physiological explanation to that. But whatever it is, you know, we experience it as kind of like an energy or a feeling, a sensation. So yeah, I just want to let you get into the idea of somatic. Can you explain that? Because I don't think that's a word that everybody would know right away.
So the idea is that there's like a living, holistic, intelligent entity, right? So it's like the living body, mind, emotions, and spirit in its totality. And so it's the idea that like the whole system is a whole system,
Mm,
and that what do we do with that? So the whole system is a whole system that is able to provide us with a lot of information, right? And is able to then act in a conscious way. So we don't necessarily think of the body as something to listen to very much, unless if we're hungry or we're horny. I'm hungry, I'm horny, my back hurts, right? That's pretty
mhm,
much it. Um, but you know, we use somatic language all the time. It's like, oh, that person makes me uneasy, right? That's a physiological word. And
mm,
we take it to mean, you know, if we're not in our bodies, we take it to mean like, I don't trust them. But what is really happening is for whatever reason, like there's probably a queasiness in the stomach. You know, there might be a tension around like when I think about somebody who like makes this, right? Then again, that's a physiological word, is nervous. But like my shoulders, like I compress, like I take up less space. I'm almost bracing for impact. And so we're constantly responding to our environment. So this is interesting, right? So on one hand, we're constantly responding to our environment, right? To see if we're safe. Do we have to brace? Can I expand? Can I open? Can I expand? Right? So there's that kind of so constriction, expansion of the body,
mm.
right? Tensing, relaxing of the body. This is the binary or the spectrum, right? So there's that. But then also we're also responding to stuff that happened before, right? So let's say when you were waiting at the bus stop when you were a kid, like a big kid came over and punched you on the left shoulder like every day for like 3 years. Like, what do you think that would kind of do to your fear response? Like when like other things, like you're just out in the world and something seems a little sketchy, like the left side twitches.
Mm,
Like it's like you would like learn to do this to protect yourself. Like that would be coupled with your sense of safety, like
right.
the left arm, the left side, right? And so one of the things that we're starting to do when we look at things somatically is looking at how the nervous system is holding charge, right? And how our sense of um, ourselves and our experience and what is okay is played out through the body. And then also, like, have you heard about like the research around like Superman pose?
It's just kind of like it makes your hormones better and it's this physical and mental boost kind of thing? Are you talking about it's something like that, right?
Yeah, can we do it?
Sure.
Yeah.
You got to stand up.
Yeah, just stand. What are you
Okay.
afraid of?
Okay.
So, the people watch, if you're just joining us, these are our bellies. So we're gonna like take up all the space we want. So the feet are wider than hips width, right? And then the hands are on the hips. I'm not gonna bother with it. And then like the chest opens, right? And we look up and like we're proud and we're brave. We're the few, the proud, the brave. And we're just like, I'm a superhero. And you just think, you just give yourself like, I'm living on purpose. I'm a force for good in the world. I'm a channel of love. And don't crank to the back of your neck. Your chin lifts, but not at the expense of the back of your neck. And the heart opens. And then your knees can bend a little. You don't want to, you could pass out. And people at home, you might as well do this. And then how are you feeling?
I feel great. Yeah, I feel on top of the world.
Yeah. And then also, the fun thing is that there's all kinds of nerves going on, like the whole vagus nerve, like all the stuff that's happening in the gut, which is usually, if we're computer people, we're often crunched, or we're driving people. Like our heart doesn't get space, our lungs don't get space, our gut doesn't get space.
Mm-hmm.
And then we let ourselves have it. And we let ourselves take up room. And then what's fun, just look around the room also and just like consciously just recognize that you are safe. Like in this moment, there are literally no stresses, there's no threats. And that this is a space that you're allowed to feel good in. Like this is like, this is you, like you're in front of like your workstation, your magical altar. I'm in front of my magical altar. We create awesome stuff. We're safe. And just kind of like notice what happens in the body when you consciously register that stuff.
Wow. Feeling euphoric.
Nice. Yeah.
Wow, man.
And so a lot of times when I like set intentions for people, they're going into a psychedelic journey and, they're like, I want to be more creative. I'll let them riff on that Superman pose and I'll be like, well, what is it to stand as somebody who's creative?
Yeah.
How does the creative Steve, let's say we're working with Steve, how does the creative Steve walk through the world? Like, how does he walk around the room? How does he sit in a chair? Right? How does confident Linda sit in a chair? Right? And so that's kind of how somatic works. It's like we're listening to the body, and then we're using the body as a conscious organ of beingness. Like not just doing, but how are we doing? How are we being? Right? How are we stand? Like everybody stands, but like, are you standing as Clark as a loser? Or are you standing as Superman? You know the story about like Superman and Clark Kent. You know how he disguises, part of how Superman's disguise works?
What are you referring to exactly about it?
Clark Kent slouches.
Oh, yeah.
Superman sits up straight. There's actually like if you go to um my link tree, there's a blog I wrote about it. But like if you look at like Christopher Reeve's Superman, like there's scenes where he like literally like moves back and forth between the two. He shows you Clark Kent and he shows you Superman. Like Superman's like literally like 4 inches taller than Clark Kent is. It's like really like Clark Kent trips and stumbles and stuff, bumps into stuff. Superman doesn't bump into stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so he is somatically embodying different personas.
Yeah.
And you can too.
Yeah. Man, that is some powerful stuff. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's every once in a while I'll get these really gnarly sinus headaches. It's like
Mhm.
equivalent to a migraine, and I'll be in pain and wanting to kind of like, curl up in a ball, and I'll be slouching because I'm tired and I'm in pain. And then I have my little cocktail of medicine, which is just like coffee, weed, and Advil and music. And then I'll feel this like charge of energy, and then my spine will straighten out. And it comes with this whole mentality shift of like, I'm going to like be in the world. I'm going to face this thing directly.
Mhm.
This also happened during a mushroom trip. This reminds me of something where I was kind of like closed in a little bit, and the trip was getting a little bit intense, and I wanted to like lean back and relax to calm myself down, but then something inside of me was like, no, you need to be face on with this right now. And so I had to straighten my spine out, not in a super stiff way, but in an alert and a present and attentive way. And
Right.
that was like a signal that I received from my body.
Yes.
So it's interesting how this stuff can work in psychedelic states, because you hear stories about people where they're like they have this weird knot. One of my friends just told me a story where he was tripping either on mushrooms or ayahuasca, and this knot that he had in his shoulder forever just somehow was just like and just like somehow just the way you're holding that tension can just melt away, and the psychedelics can just help ease that process somehow. I don't know how it's working, but it's pretty magical how all of that stuff can work in a trip.
Yeah. I mean, interestingly enough, a lot of the reports I get is that the tension goes away when the belief goes away,
Hmm.
right? Like I'm not safe, or,
Hmm.
I'm not worthy, or whatever it is. Um, but also, back to the idea of let's do a callback to learning our lessons gently with kindness and self-love, is that our reactions, even if they are sometimes not right sized. I don't know if I'm the only one who has ever gotten into some sort of conflict or something like that, and they've overreacted, some kind of minor thing, and then they blew it up,
Yeah.
um, or shut down, right? Because some people just are fawners, and they just people please themselves within an inch of their own lives.
Yeah.
I'll argue, sometimes I'll argue loud, um, and that stuff is in there deep, and it was the best thing that was the best solution we could come up with at the time for how to keep ourselves safe. And so it deserves to be honored. It deserves some gentleness.
Absolutely. I agree with that, man. So there's a story that you shared in one of your videos that's related to all of this, about you almost getting hit by a car. Would you care to share that little story?
I don't remember.
It was you were on your way to a meditation, uh a mindfulness teacher, and you almost got hit by a car.
Oh, right. Yeah. Um, well, I mean, they should tune into my Instagram and I'll tell
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
you. I was walking across the street,
Yeah.
and some car went blowing by and almost hit me, and they might as well have like given me the finger as they went by.
Hmm.
And I was pissed, and I had done enough meditation to know that I was mad, but underneath the mad was fear, right? Like they scared me, right? And I was mad that they scared, because how dare they? And it wasn't right, and all these kinds of things. But I couldn't, but for all of that awareness, I couldn't let it go.
Hmm.
And so my dude was like, what I want you to do is like scan your body and I want you to feel where the fear and the anger is. And I felt like all this heat in my arms and I felt like the clenching and stuff like that. And he was like, okay, now that you found it, like, what are you going to do with it? Because I had some yoga practice. I had like yoga training too, but I kind of hadn't put the pieces together. And so I was like, oh, okay, like I like literally relax this stuff. And it brought me back to center.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I try and do now. And what you'll find when you do this is that we all have, this is the body keeps the score, right? We
Mm-hmm.
all have particular ways of holding. And also, we have particular ways of contracting. We also have particular ways of going numb, right? Some of us are like world-class disassociators and like just kind of like go limp, and that's almost like the new age guy syndrome. It's like, whoa, man, like it's all good, like no conflict, and but they're like they're vacant. Their eyes they've left the building,
Yeah.
right? And they would rather just abdicate and leave than be present, and assertive, right? Because you can be assertive without being aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just showing up for the deal, whatever the deal is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate all of the things that you've shared. I don't want to hold you too long, man, because I know you got stuff going on. You got a family.
You got stuff going on.
Yeah. So I think thank you so much for the Superman exercise and the personalized message of being deserving of love. Like I was not expecting this to feel so good, like this has been the most like rewarding talk that I've had on this channel, like mentally, physically. Like I feel amazing after hearing what you've had to say, man.
Rad. Thank you
So
so much. Yeah, I mean, it's been a joy.
yeah,
I mean, you've really hold a great space for, the channel. You hold a great space. You brought it out.
thank you, man. Well, I will definitely be adding all the links to your channel. Yeah, I've been following your stuff for a little while now. I love what you're doing. Please keep it up, man. And eventually, what's up?
Maybe add the link to the Superman article too,
Okay.
because interestingly enough, um, Superman also has like psychedelic cosmovision, like the way
Mm.
we see when we're tripping, like all the connections and like
Mm.
interplays, like he sees that all the time,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
I
yeah.
and I cite evidence.
Yeah, awesome. You also do integration coaching, right? And so that's all in your link tree and everything.
Yeah, like that's similar to what we did. And I also have a 6-week meditation class coming up in January, where we do integration and meditation. And yeah, like if that's something that's interesting to you, like let's get you in there.
Yeah, yeah, sounds great. It's like a live workshop online type of thing.
Yeah, we meet, but like, there's one class a week and then there's like 2 meditation sessions.
Great. Yeah, sounds cool. Sign me up, man.
Right on, you're in.
All right, cool. Well, I'll keep in touch with you for sure, man. Thank you for your time, Daniel.
All right, thank you.
All right. See you later.
Ciao.